Okay, get yourself ready for your practice. So we're going to start off, rather than in cross legs, in baddangulyasana. And if you've got a bolster, use that. So this is just to kind of bring our attention into the hips and to just give the hips a gentle opening just to begin with. So just sit yourself against the bolster. If you haven't got a bolster, just use lots of cushions, and then guide yourself down along the bolster, and then let the knees fall apart. Now if it feels as though your back is kind of jammed into the bolster, and just sit yourself away a little bit more, and then as you come down, really elevate the heart area, lift the chest as you come down, and then just find your comfort within the pose. So baddangulyasana, using the bolster, really broadens the ribs, it really broadens the chest, it broadens the abdomen. But what we're really working on here, because we're going to work in the hips, is the hips. It opens up the front of the hips. Now if it's too intense for you, then you can always put some blocks underneath your thighs. Otherwise, just allow yourself to rest into the floor and just focus on your breath. Just long, slow, deep, deliberate inhalations and exhalations. Just soften your jaw and your tongue and your throat. Observing that as you soften your tongue, you release tension around the forehead and around the eyes. Just focus on inhalations and exhalations, filling the lungs from the bottom to the top, emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom, breathing evenly into both lungs. If it becomes uncomfortable in your hips, then consciously stamp the heels together. Press the heels consciously together. Press the outside edge of the feet together. Press the big toes together. Just to bring balance in that opening action. So at the same time as pressing the big toes together, keeping the insteps away from each other. So focusing on long, slow, deep, deliberate inhalations and exhalations, listening to the breath. Just spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Something or someone or somewhere that brings you a feeling of abundance, of positive energy. Hold on to that feeling of abundance. And then push your elbows into the floor. Lift the chest. Try not to poke the head forwards as you come up. And then just bring yourself into cross legs. Just half padmasana or swastikasana, holding onto your knees, lifting up into the chest. Just taking a few deep inhalations and exhalations. And then with an exhalation, turn to the right side. Drawing your abdomen across, your ribs and your shoulders. And then come back to the center, hold onto your knees. Lift up into your chest. And then with an exhalation, turn to the left, drawing your abdomen across, your ribs across, your shoulders across. Elevating the heart area up to the ceiling. Digging the back hand firmly into the floor, keeping the chest lifted and open. And then come back to the centre. Just keep the bolster where it is, if it's still there, and have your hands either side of the bolster, turn your toes under, and then come up into dog down. Now, if your head doesn't reach the bolster, then you can get a block or two and just elevate the end of the bolster like that. So you just lift the end of the bolster up. So I don't want you to bend your elbows to find your head on the bolster. I want you to keep your elbows straight, but just rest in the forehead region on the bolster, and then come up into dog down. Just breathing even, deep inhalations and exhalations, listening to the breath. Keeping the jaw and the tongue and the throat soft. Working to press the fronts of the legs through to the backs of the legs. And elevating the tailbone and the seat bone region up towards the ceiling. So supporting your head in Adho Svanasana just allows you to draw your attention into the spine, into the legs. Allows you to stay in the pose a little longer, but try not to let the neck shrink. Keep the neck long if you can. Focusing on long, slow, deep, deliberate breaths. Okay, step your feet forwards, come up into a standing position, just move the bolster out of the way. And then have a couple of blocks for your hands. And then set your feet up for uttanasana. So have your feet as wide apart as your mat. Have the heels as wide apart as the mat, and turn your toes inwards. Spread the toes, lift up into the chest, elevate the heart area up to the ceiling, squeeze the elbows together. Lift up into the heart area and then hinge at the hips. And then reach down, find blocks underneath your shoulders. Tighten the kneecaps, press the fronts of the knees through to the backs of the knees. Lift the fronts of the thighs up towards the top of the leg, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards. Lifting the seat bones, projecting the chin and the chest forwards, trying to draw the shoulder blade region in towards the front chest. So the way to access the shoulder blades is to tilt up the seat bones, to lift the seat bones away from the backs of the thighs, to press the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs, to press the fronts of the knees through to the backs of the knees, to press the fronts of the shins through to the backs of the shins. Lifting the seat bones up towards the ceiling and then projecting the chin and the chest forwards. It's the cow pose really, isn't it? Lifting the tailbone up to the ceiling, projecting the chin and the chest forwards. If you go down lower, then do. Projecting that chin and the chest forwards, driving the seat bones up to the ceiling, drawing the shoulder blades in. If you can reach the floor, then again, come down to the floor. But as soon as you start to do this, so bending the knees round in the back, then go back a little higher if that is happening for you. So projecting the chin and the chest forward. So look at my shoulder blades. If I do the kind of cat pose, turning the tailbone in, my back is rounding. If I do the cow pose, lifting the seat bones away from the backs of the thighs, tilting the tailbone up towards the ceiling, and then projecting the chin, the abdomen to the diaphragm, to the collarbone, to the chin, then the back straightens. So try and draw the shoulder blades in towards the front chest. If you can reach around the backs of your heels, then do. But keeping the chest lifted, keeping the shoulder blade region drawing consciously in. Drawing the torso through the space between the two legs. Okay, come back to just the center stage. And then bring your hands into your hips, bend your knees on the way up if you need to, and then come up into Tadasana. Just be in Tadasana, lift up into the chest, extending the spine up towards the ceiling. Just listen to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. And then stretch the arms forwards, interlock the fingers right into the webbing of the hands, turn the palms all the way out, and then raise your arms over your head. So lift the chest, draw your arms beyond your ears, elevate the heart area upwards, activate your legs as though you are still in Adho Svanasana. Activating the kneecaps, the thighs, the shins, turning the shins inwards, turning the thighs inwards, fronts of the thighs. Try and wing the arms beyond your ears. And then release your arms, swap the interlock of your fingers, turn your palms all the way out, and then raise your arms over your head. Squeeze in the outer elbows in, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, tucking the tailbone in, lifting up into the chest, winging your arms beyond your ears. And then gently release your arms. So we're going to use the wall to help us to activate the back leg. Now, if you might not like me, I don't really have. I suppose I've got there, but then the ceiling is too low. So this really is all I've got as a makeshift wall. So all you need is just something that's going to be firm enough not to move. So it just needs to be firmly into the wall, and then you're going to hit your heel into that kind of area. So you might just use the leg of a sofa as long as your sofa is secure. So you're just going to stand with your back to that that leg for the moment. Sorry, and have a couple of blocks for your hands for parsvottanasana. So before we do with the back wall, I want you to just step forwards a little and then turn your left toes out slightly, step forwards with the right leg. So we're just doing this away from that wall at the moment, and then just work to bring the hips level. So bringing the hips level relies on the back, on the legs turning inwards, the fronts of the legs turning inwards, lift up into the heart area, and then hinge at the hips. Just find the blocks, or if you don't need the blocks, you can come down to the floor. But again, it's that same action of the back. If it's rounding like this, then go onto higher blocks. If you can extend from the abdomen to the diaphragm, to the collarbone, to the chin, if you can keep the hips level, tilt in the tailbone up so that the shoulder blade region moves in, that's it, then you can stay. So just feel the pose just as it is. I'm not giving you a great deal of instruction here, just be in the pose, extending into the spine. See how much you can lengthen into the spine. And then just bend that front leg, hop in with the back leg, and then go back to where you started. Again, just put the blocks in the place. So again, we're not using the wall quite yet. So this time you're just going to turn the left toes out, sorry, the right toes out slightly, and then step forwards with the left foot. And then again, just turning the fronts of the thighs so the hips come level, lifting up into the spine, and then extending forwards, using the blocks if necessary. Just observing the difference in the feeling of the pose. So really activating Tadasana in those legs, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, lifting the tailbone. Although that's a difference from Tadasana, isn't it? Projecting the chin and the chest forwards. Just extend into the spine. Okay, and then bend that front leg, hop in with the back leg, and then come back to the centre. So now we're going to go to the wall, and the back heel has to really make good contact with that with whatever we're using for the wall. It could be a wall. So you're just going to make sure. So we're going to step forward to the right foot. So if you've got quite a narrow space, just make sure that the left foot is pressing against the wall. Turn the left toes out slightly, and then step forward. Now at this stage, it should feel like your heel, that back heel, is really stamping itself into the wall. So activate those legs really firmly, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, lifting up into the heart area, kicking the foot into the wall. Now we're going to come down slowly. Have your hands on your hips, wing your elbows back, and just as you start to come down, I want you to really firmly kick that back heel really firmly into the wall, and then extend into the spine, lengthen into the spine. Keep kicking that back heel deeply into the wall, and then reach down, find your blocks, or if you can go down lower, go down lower. But I want you, don't go all the way down. I want you to really concentrate on turning that back leg, the front of the thigh inwards, the front of the front thigh inwards, but kick that back heel really hard into the wall, and then just observe how much more you can extend into the spine. If you can go down lower. So it's just working that back leg to extend into the spine. So the more you kick that back heel into the wall, the more you tighten that kneecap, pushing the front of the knee through to the back of the knee, the more you turn that back thigh inwards, the more you can extend into the spine. Okay, bend that front leg, step forwards, set up your blocks again, and then come back to the center. So, just give me a thumbs up, sideways or down. Did you notice any more? Did you notice whether there was more length in the spine? Yep, so thumbs ups, good. So just come back, turning the right heel outwards, sorry, not the right heel, the right toes outwards, keeping the right heel against the wall, and then come forwards with the left leg. Have your hands on your hips. So like we often do, you can turn that heel all the way out, turn the toes in with that back foot, and then lift up into the chest. Find the levelness of the hips. And then as soon as you start to come forward, then lengthen into the spine. Kick into that back leg, lengthening into the spine, and then come down. Find the blocks. Pushing that back heel firmly into the floor, lengthening into the spine. If you can go down lower, but if you go down lower and your back becomes like this, like a tortoise shell, then you've got to either activate that back leg even further, or you have to go higher. So kick that back foot really firmly into the wall. If you can reach down, then do. So this is a good basis for Parivrtta Trikonasana, isn't it? That back heel kick in really hard into the wall, and then lengthening into the spine. So maybe there are a number of things that you notice in this pose when we do it with the foot in the wall. Maybe it doesn't feel like the body becomes too heavy on the front leg, but perhaps the spine feels like it extends more intensely, more deeply. Okay, bend that front knee, step forwards with the back foot, and then come up into standing position, and then just be in Tadasana, listening to the breath, just focusing on long, slow, deep, deliberate inhalations and exhalations. Soften the jaw and the tongue and the throat. Okay, so we're going to go from there into Trikonasana. Now, so Andrew, I know you don't like Trikonasana, and so what you can do is use the chair. And so when we come over, you're going to have your foot in the wall, and then you can always just come over just like this, because this is about getting your legs to do the work. Because often when you do trikonasana, everything collapses into this front leg, and then it becomes really uncomfortable. And so this is about getting the back leg to work. So you can use the chair if you need it. So just have your left side close to the wall, lift up into the chest, elevate your heart area upwards, activate your fingers. And then place the left heel into the wall, and then step nice and wide with the right foot, turning that right foot all the way out. So before we do anything else, I want you to go back to that heel and kick it into the wall. Now at this stage it's difficult to kick it into the wall. When you start to go over it, it's much easier to kick it into the wall. But just try and see if you can really connect intellectually with that heel on the wall. Turn this leg all the way out. So have your hands on your hips, and then just incrementally start to come over. But as you start to come over it, then I want you to kick really hard into that wall. So it's the same action as in parsva. So you press that heel into the wall, and then perhaps you can lengthen more deeply into the spine. Keeping the back legs straight, tightening the kneecap, and then finding the chair or reaching down. So if it's the hamstrings on this front leg, then the more you kick into that back leg, the more you reduce that sensation. If coming down too low gives you hamstring pain, then just stay high. Turn the chest. Keep that back heel really kicking firmly into the floor. Reach up with the top hand if you can. But keep kicking that back heel into the floor so that then you can lengthen and grow into the spine. Okay, come back to the center. Bring the feet parallel. And then step or jump your feet back together. Good. So that means that felt better. That means it felt, oh, I've made some fireworks happen. I'm not quite sure how I've done that. That means it feels okay. That means it didn't feel good at all. So just let me know, how did that feel, Andrew? Okay, right, okay, so that's fine. Okay is good. Okay, so let's just go to the other side. I'm going to have my back to you, unfortunately, but I'll try my best to keep an eye. So the right heel comes into the wall. So it's the heel into the wall, not the outside edge of the foot. It's the heel, and then turn the left leg and foot all the way out. Again, just being mindful of that alignment of the feet. So if you've got stiffness in the hips, you can bring that front foot towards the toes and beyond it, but bring the heel into the instep. Otherwise, lift up into the chest, have your hands on your hips, and then start to come over and then kick that foot really firmly into the wall. Lifting up into the chest, reaching down, finding the chair or the leg, kicking that foot really hard into the wall so that then you can lengthen into the spine. Turning the abdomen up to face the ceiling, and then reach up. Breathing even deep inhalations and exhalations, listening to the breath. Kicking that back heel firmly into the wall. Good, okay, and then come back to the center. And then step the feet back together and then come back into Tadasana. So better, normal, or worse? Just so let me know. So kind, yeah. So I think that was almost a thumbs up there, Andrew. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so it's just the thing with trikonasana is that it will always feel quite unpleasant if you allow that front leg to bear all of the weight of the pose. So it's about getting that back leg to work firmly. Just very, very brief trikonasana away from the wall. So we're not going to use the wall this time. We're just going to come back, turn the left toes in, the right leg and foot all the way out. Now, when we come down, I want you to imagine that you're still kicking that foot really hard into the wall, and then come over and using the chair again if you need it, turn in the chest, and then just finding that levelness of action between the legs. And again, aligning the feet to accommodate the hips if you need to. So bringing that front foot beyond the back foot, beyond the toes of the back foot. And then come back to the center, swap the feet around, turn the right toes in, the left leg and foot all the way out. And then pressing that back heel into an imaginary wall. So keep pushing that heel into the imaginary wall. When the hand makes contact with the shin, then chances are you might lose that back leg. So I'm suggesting that you keep that back heel really firm all the way through the pose. And then perhaps the pose will feel lighter, feel more evenly distributed. Come back to the center, bring the feet parallel, and then step or jump the feet back together. And then bring your feet hip width apart, turn your toes in, raise your arms over your head, thumb into the crease of the elbows, wrap your fingers around your elbows, and then just hang down in uttanasana. Just listening to the breath. Long, slow, deep, deliberate inhalations and exhalations. And then when you're ready, just bring your hands down to the floor, bring your hands into your hips, and then come up into Tadasana. Just lifting up into the chest. Just taking deep inhalations and exhalations. And then come down just onto your knees, keep your hands as wide apart as your mat, step back and then turn your toes under and then come up into dog down. Activating your heels like you're kicking them into a wall. So that's another way of developing your svanasana, by having the heels against the wall, kind of sliding them down the wall, but then you really press the heels, you really kick the heels into the wall. So imagine that that's what you're doing. Okay, and then come down onto your toes, just sit back on your heels for a moment and lift up into your chest. Just observe the energy that you have released through your practice. Just breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. And then come up onto all fours. So for rajakapotasana, the pigeon pose, so just have the hands underneath your shoulders, your knees underneath your hips, just stretching into your toes. Bring your right knee to make contact with the right wrist. Bring the right foot out to the underneath the left hip, and then lengthen that left leg away. Come up onto the fingertips, and then elevate the heart area up to the ceiling. Turning the back leg in like you're doing Tadasana. So turning the front of the thigh inwards, the back of the thigh broadens outwards. Taking the hip with it. Lifting up into the chest. So breathing, even deep inhalations and exhalations. And then bring the heels of the hands down, turn your toes in, and then just walk that left leg in, and then come back onto all fours. So just recenter yourself, hands underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips. And then bring the left knee to make contact with the left wrist. The left foot sits underneath the right hip, and then lengthen that right leg away. Point the toes of that back leg and come up onto the fingertips. Really working to Tadasana-ize that back leg. Turning the front of the thigh inwards, the back of the thigh broadening outwards, taking the hip forwards with it, and then lifting up into the chest. Feeling that really extreme stretch of the side abdominal walls. And then bring the heels of the hands down, turn the toes in, and then just step in and then just step back. Just have a look, be on all fours, have a little wriggle in the hips, and then sit back down onto your heels, lift up into the chest, and then just come forward into virasana, trying to keep the seat bones down on the heels. Bring the forehead down if you can. You will use a block underneath your head if you lose contact between the seat bones and the heels when you bring your head down. Okay, bring your hands underneath your shoulders, push yourself up into a seated position, just again lifting up into the chest, just observing your energy, observing the energy that you have released through your practice so far. And then come up into, just sit in cross legs. So half padmasana or swastikasana, whichever is most accessible for you. And then hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest. Just elevating the heart area up to the ceiling, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Just filling the lungs evenly. And emptying the lungs evenly. Rising the heart area up to the ceiling. And then with an exhalation, turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across your ribs and your shoulders. And then come back to the center, hold onto your knees, lift up into your chest, elevating the heart area up to the ceiling. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the left, drawing your abdomen across your ribs and your shoulders. Taking the back hand firmly into the floor. And then coming back to the center. Just come down onto your back and have a block handy. We're going to come up into setubandha, just lifting the seat bones, gathering the shoulder blades together, coming right up onto the tops of the shoulders. Just placing the brick in the tailbone region. Hold onto the edges of the mat like you want to tear the mat apart. And then either stay with bent knees like this, or if it feels okay in your back, just straighten one leg, then the other, and if that feels okay in your back, then you can just push the legs away, tadasanaizing the legs, keeping the lift of the chest, extending the heels away, pulling the toes towards your kneecaps. keeping the chest lifted, trying not to sink in the chest, keeping the heart area lifting up to the chin. And then when you're ready, just bend your legs if you're stretching them out, bring the feet close to the block, and then just lift yourself up off the block. I often have to come up onto the tip toes in order to give myself that space, and then adjust your shoulders on the way down. Just stay on the floor with the knees together, the feet apart for a moment, and then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, maybe even reaching around the outsides of the little toes, and then coming into happy baby. Just really easing out any tensions in your back. Okay, and then just rock yourself up into a seated position. Have a blanket for underneath your head, and then just guide yourself down in a good straight line. And then allow yourself to gently release into the floor. Just focusing on long, slow, deep, deliberate inhalations and exhalations. And then just allow your toes to wriggle. Wriggle your toes, wriggle your fingers. Just bringing yourself back into this pose of shavasana. And then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom. Just a gentle massage on the spine. And then gently roll over onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then straighten out the top leg, come back up into a seated position, just a final cross legs with your hands in the masti, just a final spinal lift. Draw your breath in through your nose down into the abdomen. A samanic breath to bring consciousness of your energy. Conscious of the energy that you've released through your practice this morning. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to acknowledge the positive energy you have created inside. And then send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then gently release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. So hopefully you feel as though you've really lifted your energy, you've given yourself good, positive energy to put into your day. So thank you very much for joining me.